Welcome to another episode of the Be Wise Podcast. I am your host, Chris Y. Wright. Make sure before we get started that you like and subscribe. Topic of today, we're going to talk a little bit about racism. I saw a clip from the After Party podcast and with Annex Berrien, and they were reviewing what Stephen A. said about racism. Now, for some reason, as much as Stephen A. Smith say he's not running for public office or he has no interest in being president of the United States, he sure does go on a lot of shows. um, anyway, that has nothing to do with this show today. I really want to talk about racism because a good friend of mine inboxed me on Facebook yesterday and asked me if I believed in systemic racism. Do I think that it exists? And for the last 10 years or more, I don't believe systemic racism exists. I used to parrot what other minorities talked about when it came to racism. I also parroted, the Black community when they talked about racism. That's where my brain was 10 to 15 years ago. But then when I start thinking for myself, I start being more of a independent thinker, and I left the cookout and I pretty much said, you know what? I don't even know what the Black community is anymore. So if they're not accepting me in that community for being an independent thinker, having my own views and opinions without being called an Uncle Tom, if they can't accept that, then I no longer want to be in that community. I'll just be me. Okay. And I'm doing quite fine. Actually, I'm probably doing better because I'm more free in my spirit. I'm not connected to some social construct or some social contract that says because you're Black or brown or other, that you have to be involved in this Black community. If you don't vote the right way, act the right way, agree with all of us. That's been a challenge for a lot of people in the community. But does racism exist? Whether I'm in that Black community or not in that Black community, does racism exist? And how am I affected by it? How are Black people affected by it? Because I am Black, so I care about the outcomes. I care about the results. I care whether Black people are going to be affected by systemic racism, institutionalized racism. So I took a really long, deep look at my life and I thought, wow, of all the misfortunes that I have, and I grew up very poor. I grew up in a broken home. Some people call it broken home. It wasn't broken, it was just normal. So I grew up in homes like that. Mother, a few fathers amongst my siblings, poor, sometimes cold houses, sometimes living day to day, not knowing where my next meal was going to come from, houses without heat. And then when I grew up on the street selling, drugs, whatever, I wasn't a big drug dealer. I think I peddled some weed here and there. So I don't want you to think that I was some crack dealer or anything like that. No. But I was a product of the streets, all right? Hip hop, basketball, the whole nine. I did it all. But all of the misfortunes in my life, I had to ask myself, did those conditions were those conditions made by me or were those conditions made by America? Were those conditions that I had to overcome, did it happen because America did something to me? Was I disadvantaged? Now, if I went on down the line and someone said, well, what about your father? And what about your father's father? What about your mother and your grandmother and their parents? Those conditions created an environment or, ecosystem that you had to overcome. I don't see it like that. When I look at every misfortune that I had and my family had, I have to admit it was self-induced, self-inflicted. So I will start from myself. All right. Let's take my parents and grandparents out of it. Why am I a middle class Black man? When I started out in this early life, considered an advanced student, reading and writing, at 4 years old, able to read the Philadelphia Inquirer paragraph for paragraph at 4 years old. I was considered gifted and advanced, always top of my class, handpicked out of a school to go to a middle magnet school that was for exceptionally advanced kids, handpicked to go to a special vocational school for advanced learning. Why? Why? That was who I was. I was reading 300-page books in fifth and sixth grade and understanding them. Um, so I'm saying I had all the tools up here, but still I wound up in the streets, caring less about school, more about girls and hip hop and drugs and sports, and just kind of wasted it away. Who did that to me? Did America do that to me when the school district actually went to my parents and said, "We think your child is gifted and he should be in this program and he should be in that program"? You could say the streets um, did that to me, but I say I did it to myself. Having a chance to go to college right out of high school, I did that. And ultimately wasted that away because I was into girls, didn't like college. I don't even think I had a 2.0 grade point average because I was going to frat parties and hanging out on campus. These are all things that I did to myself, right? Um, and then as an adult, went into the military, once again, handpicked by white leaders. You're an exceptional young sailor. We're going to meritoriously advance you to this, meritoriously advance you to that. You're an amazing. I was an E6 way before I should have been, which is a first class petty officer in the United States Navy, because I was smart. And I was manipulative. Did I say that word right? Manipulative. And I knew how to game the system. I spoke eloquently. I know how to interact with white people. And I was given things. I was given things because of who I was. How is that racism? How is that the system being against me? But I would always waste these opportunities away. Left the Navy after my 10th year when I was told probably should have been an officer candidate. I got my college degree from a very, very good college. And girls, streets, had no financial literacy, didn't save a dime. I went into the Navy with the same amount in my bank account as when I got out. Same. I left the Navy the same amount with nothing. I was living payday to payday. I was living payday to payday when I went in. I was living payday to payday when I got out. Nothing changed because of my brain and the self-inflicted wounds. It could have been just the system of life that I came from, but I was never incarcerated. My father wasn't incarcerated. My family didn't carry guns. They weren't involved in street gangs. Well, one of my brothers was. But I can't think of any disadvantage that America inflicted on me that made me who I am today. How am I today? I'm a pretty successful real estate agent. But I'm older. There's guys half my age doing the same amount of real estate volume that I'm doing because they either had good guidance, good consoling, good mentorship, good leadership. When they were a teenager, they made sure they went in the right direction. I did not have that. But I don't attribute that to racism or systemic racism. Then I would ask people, what if it does exist? Are we supposed to just give up and throw our hands in the air and say, well, I'm not going to be successful because there's systemic racism? Is that what we do? Is that what we teach our children? No. So I was thinking about all this all week. It's a lot more I could go into, but I don't want to tell my whole life story. I don't want to give you a soliloquy. 10 minutes was enough. But I saw this video. This is Stephen A. Smith being asked how he feels about racism. And I pretty much feel the same way.
Here's Stephen A. Smith in an interview being asked about race, and he gave a very interesting response.
Would you worry about racism if you ran for president?
No. I know it exists. I know that you can't escape it, but I do not believe it is as prevalent as some on the left would like us to believe. I do believe a vast majority of Americans judge you on the content of your individual character rather than the color of your skin. I think a lot of people in America, especially in this day and age, now more so than ever before, it's not about race. It's about the fact that they don't give a damn about it because they got their own problems. That's entirely different than believing they are superior to you and they want to hold you back from ascending. That's not what's going on to the degree that it was decades ago. What's going on now is that we have more white Americans and others suffering and worried about the state of our nation. And because they're concerned about that, that's where their worries lie.
And
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
go.
Yes.
Respond.
Wow. Yes. I got to be honest. When I saw that this was going to be a topic of discussion, it was like, oh God, eye roll. Like
I know.
Especially on the heels of AOC's Munich Security Conference visit and all the gaps and stuff. I'm just like, we need seriousness. I think this moment calls for it. And Stephen A. Smith is a sports broadcaster, not a knock on sports broadcasters. It just doesn't necessarily mean you're qualified to run for president.
Yeah.
I got to say, though, I really love that answer. I really did.
So 2 things happened there in that video. Stephen A. Smith was absolutely right. White people that I know, they're working every day trying to deal with this economy, trying to feed their kids. What good is it going to be for them to be racist? They're just trying to be like, get from day to day, week to week, month to month. They got their own problems. They're going through divorces. They're going through, shared custody with their kids. They're dealing with court dates, traffic tickets. They're dealing with trying to keep their job, just getting written up by their boss. They're on their 3rd warning at work. Their wife is cheating on them. Husband's cheating on them. Kids wants to drop out of school. I mean, they just got so many problems that to be racist is, now they may be mad at the system. I understand that. You can make some bigoted comments because you're mad at the system. Everybody thinks that the other guy is more privileged than they are. But to actually feel that there's some systemic, and here's the funny part. People will look at 200 years ago, even 60 years ago, how corporate America was built. White folks building company after company after company. And I guess some Black people are expecting them to elevate us in those companies. Well, we didn't build it. You build something. You create something out of nothing. From clay, from wit, from education. And then you have the right to run it how you want. Blacks cannot expect or feel that there's some entitlement that Bill Gates built this company and he should make me a VP. Elon Musk built this company and I should have a high position in it because of equity. That's just not how it works. You have to build something on your own. I am a broker owner of a real estate agent. That's something that me and my partner are building together. It's in its early stage. It's young. Now, we don't know where we want to go with it, but we do know we want to plan our retirement. No one's giving you that. I took the state exam to be a real estate agent. I worked for the last 14 years to get good at what I do. I know what the vision and mission of my company is, so where I want to hire the right people to help it grow. No one can come in my company and go, well, you owe me a position because equity. You don't have any Hispanics in your company, so you should hire me and make me a boss. It's not how it works. I built this. So we shouldn't expect other corporations to do the same thing. Does that make sense? I mean, systemic racism would say that a system was built and just by the sheer privilege of your skin color, you already have a one up and you're going to preserve that however you want. And you don't have to let anyone in that you don't want to let in. And if you don't want Black people in your company, it's sad. It's a shame. You're probably a bigot, but that shouldn't be forced upon you by some system or some government. You do what you want to do. There are people out there who have black companies that only hire Black people. You ever see the movie Boomerang with Eddie Murphy? Remember that? Boomerang was about a Black CEO owning a Black company, and all of his employees, including the mailroom, was Black. That was like a dream. That was a vision. And people applauded that, like, woohoo, a Black company. So if a white company does the same thing, do you applaud that? Nothing systemic about it. I want to show you Wesley Hunt. He's a congressman, I think in Texas or Florida, Texas.
Really, somebody else said it. Go to film.
They've also gotten away with painting the Republican Party as being racist. I live in a district that President Trump would have won by 23 points. I ended up winning by 30 points. I beat out 9 white guys. It's a white majority district. In a Republican primary, 75% of the voters were white. And they voted for me overwhelmingly. And why? Because I was the best candidate. I'm literally being judged by the content of my character, not by the color of my skin. First of all, I'm an American. I'm a combat veteran. I am a father. I am a West Point graduate. I'm an Ivy League graduate. So you can't call us racist anymore.
Booyah! No, I agree with him 1,000%. And I hate when they call me, you Uncle Tom sell out, Uncle Tom, Lil Johnny and them. It's no, articulate Black man in the conservative party should probably be listened to at this point.
Exactly. So same with me. I have the education. I have the God-given talent, skill, acumen to do whatever I want on this earth. And I have never, ever, ever been rejected. Why? Some people say, oh, well, you were a token. Okay. When something that's very correct about the word token, almost every job that I've had, I've been one of the only Blacks in the room. Yeah, I've been in areas where I was a district manager, I was a regional manager, I was a pharmaceutical sales rep in an industry where there was very few Black pharmaceutical sales rep. There was very few. I was a district manager and a regional manager for a major corporation, and every time we had like corporate meetings and stuff like that, many times I was the only Black in the room. But people would call you the token. You have to qualify to be the token even though. If you were a Black man and you were the token, that means that they were only going to hire one Black person to an executive position. Then you have to be available and qualified to do that. It's like Black NFL coaches. If you want more Black NFL coaches, first of all, in order to get the premium jobs, it's only 30 positions in the NFL. So there may only be 2 to 3 Black men that qualify for that position. When it was only one, let's say a Ray Rhodes back in the 90s or Tony Dungy back in the early 2000s, whenever that was. You had to be prepared to be that one, that an NFL team would take a shot. So being a token isn't bad because that person prepared for that moment. Oprah Winfrey always said, what is luck? Preparedness meets opportunity. So there's the opportunity and there's the preparedness. And many Black men like myself would walk into an interview and they had no intention on giving me the job. They had to interview me so they could say, oh, we're a diverse company. We interview a bunch of Black people. And then I walk in that room and I blew the doors off. I was like, oh, well, we had better white candidates, but this guy, he was impressive. Same thing happened to Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. They had the Rooney Rule. And he walked in there. Steelers had every intention of hiring a white coach. I forgot the candidate's name. I think it was Russ Grimm, because Russ Grimm was a former Steeler. But Mike Tomlin walked in that room, and when the interview was over, They were thinking, how can you not interview this guy or accept this guy as our head coach? He blew the doors off. I'm going to show you some clips. And I'm using Charlie Kirk's example because Charlie Kirk was called a racist for trying to prove that racism didn't exist in America. Isn't that weird? He was called a racist. They said some of the things he said was very racist. But all he was trying to do in his examples was prove that racism didn't exist. And then every time someone came at him, he was like, so what? So what? Here are my examples why racism doesn't exist. But Wesley Hunt, congressman in Texas, said, I got all the credentials. I'm a combat veteran. I'm this, I'm that. I went to West Point. I got to education. I got this, that. And because he was so well qualified, people in his district overwhelmingly voted for him over the white candidates. Where's the racism in that? Where's the racism? He was qualified. Here's some Charlie Kirk videos. We'll talk about those as well.
Only a white supremacist. What evidence do you have that I'm a racist?
I was just literally watching a video of you talking about whiteness as a whole, talking about whiteness as a concept, okay? And you were trying to explain how white privilege doesn't exist.
Correct, it doesn't.
You are a white man. How do you know?
What can a white person do that a black person can't do?
Black applicants to jobs are 50% less likely to get jobs if they have a black-sounding name.
That's not even close to being true. That's not even close to being true.
That is a literal...
In fact, it's the opposite.
I'm not going to argue your lived experience. I'm not going to... No.
So he's saying that to Charlie Kirk, and a black guy is in the crowd going, that's bullshit. I'm black. Let me tell my story. That's one thing about white liberals. Sometimes they feel that they need to defend us. They're so ready to protect our black skin. They're so ready to put the chair up so we can get a leg up. They're so ready to create an atmosphere of diversity, equity, and inclusion that sometimes we just don't want them to do that because, wait, you're going to tell me my life experiences? Watch this guy.
See, now you have to listen to him under your rules because a black person is going to say you're wrong.
I am. He can say I'm wrong. I know.
Come on up to the mic.
I know. I read your.
My name is Keemon Dixon. I have a really black name. Please tell me how 50% of my internships have been denied when I've worked for Senator Mike Lee, Mayor Trent Sachs, Speaker Mike Schultz.
Hold on.
I worked for a Congressman, Burgess Owens. I've actually worked on his campaign. I've worked on the campaigns of John Huntsman Jr. Please tell me how my black experience and my black name has not given me. Go ahead.
Same with me. I joined the Navy, my company commander, boot camp. I forgot how many guys are in boot camp with you, but let's say there's 40 people. My company commander came up to me the week before graduation and said, hey, I'm going to give you a meritorious advancement to E2. Everyone starts in boot camp as an E1. I said, why? He said, you've excelled in boot camp. You've done amazing. You've passed all the tests, flying colors. You came in here not knowing how to swim and you left a swimmer. You overcame all the adversity and all the odds. Then when I got into regular Navy, I remember working in the mess hall. That's like, if you don't know what a mess hall is, you have to do cooking duties and dishwashing and all that. Everyone has to do 90 days of that. I'm in there. Another naval officer came up to me, flight pilot, and go, hey, I'm pretty impressed at you around this place. I want to talk to the admiral about you working for the staff. So I got to work for an admiral. And then that admiral, when I had left that duty station, had recommended me to another admiral. And the next admiral had recommended me for another admiral. So I worked for high power Navy people. I had connections. Of course, I squandered them away after I got out of the Navy. They were trying to get me to be an officer. They were trying to get me to not only be an officer, but spend 20 to 30 years in the Navy because they said, you can go places in this U.S. Navy. I squandered that away. That wasn't any type of systemic racism that didn't help me move forward. I had the time of my life in the Navy, nothing begrudgingly, and I love my life. If I didn't make the move that I made, it would be like the butterfly effect. I wouldn't have my beautiful wife and my beautiful children. But I'm just letting you know that I could have gone places. I might have been a very wealthy man. Anyway, so that black guy right there said, I don't need a white liberal to tell my story. I don't need that. Is Charlie Kirk talking about the definition of systemic racism or racism?
Did systemic racism end, and what is your definition of systemic racism?
Systemic racism is a law on the books that prohibits an individual from doing something based on their race. It largely ended with the Equal Rights Amendment and the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s.
Okay, and so do you think that it just ended right then and there, and there's no lingering effects of that could, kind of explain some of the disparities we see today?
If the hypothesis of lingering intergenerational 60-plus year effects are true, then you must tell me how Jews have done so materially well post-Holocaust, despite everything being taken from them.
Well, I don't think that's a one-to-one.
You're right, Jews had it much worse than blacks. Have black Americans ever had a crazy, fanatical dictator trying to kill half their population in a span of 5 years?
Boom! Okay. Some black people are going to look at, American slavery was so much worse than the Holocaust. Let's not pit each other's pain against one another. Jews had it very horrific. But Jews had it very horrific, even closer to modern times than we did. You know what I mean? Slavery was started back in the 1700s in America, right? Ended late 1800s. Of course, we had Jim Crow, discrimination. I get it. You don't have to tell me history. But I'm saying that there are still Holocaust survivors today. Now, you could say, I'm an American slavery survivor. No, you're not. No, you're not. You never been in whips and chains. No, your grandparents might have been. But if you're walking this earth today, no. But there are Holocaust survivors still alive today, or their children.
We have been enslaved for hundreds.
No, that's not the question. I'm saying,
Well,
I'm saying Jews actually had it far worse than black Americans did in the 1930s and 40s. Way worse. You have to prove the argument that it applies to other groups. So your argument is that things pass down through generations, right? That there's aftershocks, there's a ripple effect. We discount that as very minimal at best. So you have to show me another minority group that has suffered that it held them back.
Right? That young man is too young to understand and compete with Charlie Kirk. That's people say, well, Charlie Kirk did college campuses because he was way smarter than him. He doesn't have a college degree. He has a high school diploma. He just reads a lot. He read a lot. Rest in peace. That college student, and every college student that he faced, has the same opportunities as Charlie Kirk did to be well-read and be able to have these debates. But there's a debate. Jews had it far worse in the 20th century than blacks had it. And look at them today. That's an us problem. Here's a guy talking about DNA with Charlie Kirk.
One thing that white people and black people have different biologically.
Don't change the question of this. Like DNA-wise, we are different.
No, we're not. That's a lie. It has been disproven. Front page of National Geographic 6 months ago. Racism created by society. If you look at DNA independently in a science laboratory, they cannot distinguish between a black person or a white person if they look at just the DNA, because the only difference is the melanin. It has been disproven. Race is a social construct that I want to break out.
The racist wants racism to end, and he's called the racist. That's what's weird. Everyone wants to call him a racist, and he was like, I want you all to stop talking about race because you're killing yourselves. You're not doing your people any good. You're not doing your generation any good. You're not moving forward because you're so stuck in a conversation about race. It is a social construct. He was telling black people, to get ahead, you're going to have to leave race on the back door, because the only thing you're concerned about right now, and the only thing that makes you different from me, is the melanin in your skin. Man, Charlie Kirk was so powerful. And I would get beat up for defending him. I can't believe you defend that Klansman. I can't believe you defend that racist. Craziness. Couple more here, and then we're going to get out of here. Actually, one more. I love this one too. Talking about brown people.
By the way, even more so, why are Hispanics getting so much wealthier? If we were so racist, why are Hispanics all of a sudden gaining income the last 20 years? There's something.
It's a difference in culture. I don't know why y'all are clapping. But it's a difference in culture.
I don't know why you're clapping, because he made a freaking solid point. And all you're thinking about is, no, but woe is me. I'm such a victim. We're victims. Stop clapping. We are victims. Don't you see that?
The way that each culture is treated is so vastly different in America.
But again, you have to tell me, other than bad looks at the grocery store, how else is your future, you as a man in America, not a black man, how is your future somehow restricted by racism?
My natural hair is seen as unprofessional when I go into an office.
Okay, so first of all, that's not your natural hair. That's not your natural hair. You have on a costume. You're cosplaying a Jamaican, or you're twisted your hair. Your hair that's not your natural hair. You had to go to a hairdresser or a barbershop, or either you twisted it yourself. You went to some like Sally's beauty shop. You got some wax or something, and you just twist and you want the dreadlock look. If that's not your natural. So stop. Just stop.
Just a workplace. When I walk around in certain places, people just assume, like I've said earlier, the dirty looks. When people think you are automatically the worst of the worst solely because of...
I've never gotten these looks before. I always hear people talk about, when I'm on the subway, people look at me. When I walk into a store, a Gucci handbag store, people look at me. Well, tell your homie brothers and sisters from your neighborhood to stop doing snatch and grabs. When you walk into a jewelry store that's been robbed 4 times by black people, tell them to stop that. Then people won't look at you funny. When you walk into your local department store like a Macy's, and every time they catch a shoplifter, they're black, tell the community to stop doing that. And then maybe people won't look at you funny. But strangely, I live in a predominantly white neighborhood, and no one's looking at me like that. Like he says, they're looking at me. Sounds like my 12-year-old daughter. Stop looking at me. People, so you feel some kind of way because people look at you funny? Well, I don't know. Pull your pants up, untwist your hair, wear decent clothing, wear a polo shirt. I don't know what it's going to take for people to stop looking at you, but I wouldn't give you a second look. I don't understand. I'm sorry.
We don't think that. You think
me like 10 times
because
now.
You think you know what white people think, and you don't.
I don't know what white people
then
think.
Then why do you keep on saying you know what white people think?
I've seen it. I'm not
you've
saying
seen our thoughts?
I've seen what people have done to me and people who look like me around the world and around in America.
How? Again, you are. Let's just make an example. You are here in the wealthiest country ever,
yes,
at an amazing university with all the opportunity imaginable in front of you. And all you want to do is look backwards at everything that prevented you, when you are a glaring example that there is no systemic racism and you can actually achieve your wildest dreams.
Whoa, I never said.
You're wearing designer jeans right now, probably with some Nike Air Force Ones or some Air Jordans. Probably got a little gold chain on under this shirt. You're at University of Alabama or Texas, or it had to be some great school, because Charlie Kirk didn't go to. We went to big schools, UC Santa Barbara, all that. Some liberal arts school, and you're getting a college education, and the world is yours in front of you, and you're saying, "I'm affected by someone looking at me." No. So to my buddy's question, do you believe in systemic racism? I said, no, I'm going to stick with that. I asked him, I'm looking at my phone right now because we were just in this conversation. And he asked me if I believed in systemic racism. And I just flat out gave him a one-word answer. I said, no. He went on with like 5 to 7 paragraphs. Oh, by the way, he's a white guy. He gave me about 5 to 6 to 7 paragraphs about why systemic racism exists. And I gave him 5 or 6, 7 paragraphs back of why I didn't. And then I finally went back to him, and he talks about black home ownership and appraisals. And he just goes on and on about systemic racism. So finally I said, all right, let's pretend I give you systemic racism. I let you have that argument. I concede. I said, you can have it if you want to die on that hill. And then I said, now what? How do you eradicate it? Do you just start giving shit away? Do you just start evening the score? Or as they do in elementary school, we don't take score anymore. Everybody's a winner. Then he goes, something about, I'm not going to tell you everything he said, but he goes, because it's a private conversation, but he goes, I think DEI, for an example, was an attempt to solve some of those issues. Oh my God. All right. Tell me what you think. Chop it up in the comments. I'll see you guys on the other side.